What's up, everybody? Evan here for Grips.com, continuing with my review of the 2015 World Series of Poker. And in this episode, we are going to put the poker into the discussion, as I'm going to talk about the prelim events that I played, some of my experiences with them, and the things that I learned from, partaking in I'd call it a light to medium schedule. It was definitely not a full schedule. It definitely wasn't, a minimalist, empty schedule, but it was light medium. I didn't go too hard. So this year, the World Series of Poker, people were excited about the preliminary events because, we had more chips, which everyone assumed more fun. But something that I got to thinking about while I was there is it more fun for the players, or is it, more of a struggle for the players, more profit for the Rio, and a lowered hourly rate for the players? In reality, it was a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B as well. And the structures were suited to specific players. The ironic thing is they probably weren't suited for the players who thought that they were suited for. So the events that I played this summer were the 1K Hyper, first ever Hyper Turbo tournament. That was a lot of fun. The 1500 Millionaire Maker, which I had the pleasure of playing in the Poker Kitchen. The 1K Turbo event, which short and sweet. That's what you get for late registering turbos. 1500 Monster Stack, which it's a really nice event. I call it the mini main because you get a similar chip stack to what you would in the main. It's kind of like half the stack, half the blind levels in terms of length, but you do get a lot of play, and there is a lot of depth in that tournament. So that one's a really good one. Definitely a good event to play. I played the 3K PLO8, which was a ton of fun. The 1500 extended levels, which was not extended whatsoever for me, and the 1500 PLO8, which was my deepest run, and honestly no surprise there because it was the tournament that I cared the most about and the one that I was most excited to play. I also hopped in a 235 daily deep stack just to see what all the hype was about there, and the hype lived up to the expectations. I also played a couple of satellites for the main event because there was very good value in playing those. So let's talk a little bit about the first thing, which is more chips and levels, which is great. You think you're going to get more play, and the idea is the amateur players who want to get more out of their first time playing in the World Series can play some more hands, and they can afford to lose a couple of more pots while still having a chance to get back in the game. The only problem with this is, since it attracted so many more players, is that all the events were played 10-handed. I don't know if this is what it always was in the past or if it was 9-handed before, but playing 10-handed, there isn't all that much you can do a lot of the time, which is probably why Greggy said that the full ring no limit events should be called the Dust Bowl. It's just people dusting around. But there is some benefit to the deep stack play, and the key for this is showing up early. If you show up early at a table where the seats have been sold, so you are eventually going to play 10-handed, you play with the people who are there, and you wait for the other people to show up, and then their stacks get put in play later. So if you show up on time, you will get to play maybe 3, 4, 5, 6-handed with the other people who want to show up on time in a deep stack format where you can actually use your skill set to try to build some chips right out of the gate. There is a large benefit to this because if you can build a stack in the early going before it's the kind of 10-handed patience poker game, you can really use these chips to your advantage to leverage people and put them in tough situations down the line when they feel the need to accumulate chips, and you've already got that out of the way. So if you like deep stack play and short-handed play, show up early. This is the one time in the tournament you'll get to do that, other than pretty much the very end. So why? Yeah, I talked about why more levels were added. But the funny thing is, with all these levels added, the pros aren't the ones who show up on time for the most part. It's mostly the first timers, the amateurs, or the people who don't have much else on the agenda to do that are playing every event that show up for the early levels. So that's one of the reasons that it's good to get there for the early levels. But the other question is, why don't the pros show up early? And I think it has a lot to do with the hours. Like now, some of the tournaments start at like 10 a.m. and then playing through till 1 a.m. So it's a ridiculous grind, which requires a ridiculous amount of stamina and focus. And I think they have other things that they could do with their time that might have a higher hourly than playing the beginning levels of a $1,500 tournament. So it's a cost-benefit analysis kind of investment. And I saw a lot of pros registering late. And I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video. One thing I want to say about these tournaments when you're playing is that it's very important to pay attention to kind of like the game changer level, which usually involves either a change in the size of the antes, which a lot of people don't notice, or a skip and a blind level. Like in one of the satellites, for example, the jump from 1-2 to 2-4 is kind of the game changer level, where most people kind of lose the play of their stack and everyone gets really shallow. And that's where you want to incorporate your tournament tactics, your concepts of leveraging and pressuring and things like that. And you want to stop playing your cash game where you do a lot more speculating because all the stacks are a lot less shallow. So those deep stack strategies, the cash game strategies, hold a lot less merit. So yeah, that's the big thing to keep in mind when playing these tournaments, is looking for those key blind levels. And actually, if you do your research before you show up, you'll get a lot more benefit out of having done that. And then you'll hear people when they're talking about it, and you'll be like, oh, well, I knew this was going to happen, but clearly they don't. And you can adjust your strategy accordingly. So let's talk about where the best value is at the Rio, because obviously when we go to play the World Series of Poker, we figure we want to play at the place where the World Series is being held. And I will say that almost all the events do have great value in them for a strong player. That is someone who is seasoned in no-limit hold'em tournaments, knows the strategies, how to play different stack sizes, all that stuff, but also someone who is able to play live comfortably and play long days. It used to be that you would put in maybe 8 to 10 hours in a day of playing these tournaments. These days, it's even longer. Like there are some 12, there are some even 14-hour days that, I mean, they just seem absolutely ridiculous, but that's what they had to do to accommodate all the people and to still get the tournaments done in a short number of days. So keep that in mind, that that's a real thing. And if you can't put in a 10-hour day, maybe register a little bit later. The other thing to look at is your expectation versus your hourly. I think it's pretty clear that, if you're a versatile player, that showing up on time should give you the highest expectation of going deep in the tournament and winning the tournament, but it does require a larger time investment than registering, say, 4 hours in or 6 hours in. So you want to decide which is more important, your expectation of going far in the tournament or your idea of maximizing your hourly rate. And each one will have different registration strategies associated with them. Next is your enjoyment factor versus your profit factor. The thing about the Rio is with so many people being in there, and so much just getting moved around and just not the best playing environments for some of the events, it really turns things into a zoo, which can put a lot of people in bad moods. And if you're there all day from start to finish, you're going to be, present for the people who are having a rough day and going through bad moods. And you're going to, deal with that a little bit more. So you want to decide, is maximizing my profit the most important, or is maximizing my enjoyment the most important? And that will also help you determine whether it makes more sense to play, the daily 1500 or the daily 1K World Series bracelet events going on, or if maybe you just want to hop into a daily deep stack where people are taking things a lot less seriously. It's a much more fun, relaxed environment, and you still play for a decent amount of money. No World Series of Poker bracelet, but you can still win, multiple hundreds of buy-ins on your investment. So, yeah, those are the things to think about when thinking about how to find the best value and what value means to you. Next up is what to do if you want to maximize your chances of having a winning summer, and I think it's very simple. Okay, because the hype is we got to play the World Series of Poker, we got to play all the events of the Rio, we got to chase that bracelet and these massive, massive prizes that are at the top paying spots of these huge field tournaments, which it's a great thing to go after if you're ready for it. And if you are comfortable with the variance that goes with playing such a big field tournament, because you're going to brick a lot when there are 5,000 players, but if you happen to be the guy who binks it, you get a massive, massive payday. So if you want to maximize your chance of having a winning summer, I would say focus on smaller field events if you're playing MTTs exclusively. And to do that, you actually probably want to visit other casinos. You can play the daily deep stack, you can play the nightly deep stack, but the rake is kind of high on those events. So I would recommend checking out other casinos if you're like, well, Grips, I don't know where to go. What you're going to want to do is follow this guy Kevmath on Twitter. That's Kevmath, and he posts everything you need to know about it. In fact, he actually had an Excel file posted at the start of the series that had all the tournaments that were going on at all the major casinos, all the buy-ins, all the structures, blind levels, starting stack, everything you needed to know so you could hand-pick which events were the best for you and not feel like you were missing out on anything. Also, if you have the skill set to play other things, I would recommend, supplementing your MTT habit with either cash games or sit and goes. I've been told that cash games are the most profitable ones ever during the World Series of Poker, and that's actually where the best action is. It's not in the tournaments, it's in the side games, the cash games outside the tournaments. And the single table sit and goes are also very good value. Another place that's really good value is the multi-table mega satellites. But again, it's a little bit of variance. So it's how much variance do you want to take into your game in your summer, and that shall be determined whether you want to play exclusively the big field MTT, small field MTT, satellite MTT, sit and goes, or cash games. Now, in terms of where the best value is in Las Vegas, you want to look towards the naturally busy casinos that have a lot of people, frequenting them, and where the poker room is close to the rest of the casino, where the action is, because you're going to have that natural spillover effect of people who don't, always play poker, like, man, hey, honey, maybe it'd be cool if we try that tournament there. What do you think? Maybe we'll hop in. Or, I just had a good run on the craps table. Maybe I'll give poker a go. It's like that classic scene in Rounders when they go to Atlantic City. But the Rio, the World Series is held in the convention center in the back, so most of the people who are there for the World Series of Poker. They're there to play poker. It's kind of like the equivalent of playing on PokerStars as opposed to playing on some site that has lots of sports betting or lots of casino stuff associated with it. You're going to get much tougher players in the place that is exclusively serving poker. All right. Also, highly promoted events. One of the reasons that the World Series of Poker main event is so soft, despite the fact that it's a 10K, is because it has so much promotion and so much hype around it. You gotta play the World Series of Poker main event. I mean, if you play poker and you're not playing the main event, what's wrong with you? Duh, get there. Some other events that were really highly publicized were the Hollywood Poker Open, which was at the M Casino Resort. That was incredible. I didn't get to play it this year, but I played last year, and it was fantastic. And the Aria 500, which was run by Party Poker and just had so many people playing it. Smaller buy-in than the main event, but the same kind of feel where you have a ton of weak players or a ton of people who, don't know what goes into a 5-day tournament. They're trying to play a 5-day tournament. If you're prepared and ready to do that, and they aren't, your odds are going to be very high of having a successful run. And obviously, main events. Anywhere that there is a main event is a good time to be playing, because the main events are the ones that have the most satellites and super satellites running to them. So you have people who are playing out of their comfort zone right from the get-go. And you also have people who have been playing, the fast-paced satellites tournaments, which are basically, a little bit of dice game, little bit of a bingo, but a lot of short stack poker, and they won their seat in doing that, and now they got to play deep stacked. Good luck, right? So main events are where the value is at, and if you're traveling the world and playing poker, always try to get into the main event if you can afford it, because it is the one that will have the most players and the most satellite players and the most people who are playing out of their comfort zone and out of their element. But you will not be out of your element. You will be exactly where you want to be and exactly where you should be to apply your skill, your trade, and get those profits. So let's talk a little bit about why the pros register late, at least in my opinion. Because I did some late registration and I had reasons for doing so, and other years I registered on time when I didn't have other things to do with my time. And I think it mainly comes down to maximizing your hourly. I said that the cash games are typically going to be more value, so it makes more sense for them to spend their time in cash games. Registering late is great because you're in for the minimum amount of time, but you can still spin up a stack very quickly because you're playing at the higher limits right away. It does require a larger bankroll that can take swings because the tourneys can be very short-lived. I know that I had a couple tournaments that lasted half an hour or an hour, and that's a pretty quick way to blow through $1,500. I saw Phil Hellmuth late reg for the 3K PLO8 at the last minute, and he busted literally the first hand. Sure, it was probably like a 55-45, but for someone who wants to get a lot of value and a lot of time out of their money, the entertainment aspect of it, registering late does not make sense because things can be over like that. It is a personal decision. What better could you be doing with your time than playing? Is there something you could be doing that makes you more money per hour than playing a poker tournament? Is there something you could be doing that's going to make you feel more fulfilled or happier that you can then take that happiness to the poker tournament? For some people, the answer is nothing. There's nothing they could be doing that's more profitable than playing poker from the get-go, and for them, reg on time. Main question that I think you should ask before you just be like, I got to reg on time, I got to get there out of the get-go, is will you have gas in the tank at the end of the day? And if you won't have gas in the tank at the end of a 12-hour day, think about how many hours you can play, and let's say it's 8. Then you register at the 4-hour mark. And if you think you can play 10, then register at the 2-hour mark. And if you think you can play 6, then register at the last minute and play 6. But the thing is, you got to make sure that you're sharp at the end of the day, because you can ask yourself, am I giving up value by not showing up on time? And the answer is obviously yes. But is it more than you will give back by being tired late at the end of the day? There's a good chance the answer is no. And when you look at it from that way, you can see why it makes sense to register at a specific blind level. And the other thing is, if the expectation is very low in the field that's so big, you register late and your time investment was the minimum when things don't go well. And when things do go well and you build a stack, you're fresher coming into day 2, which is when the stakes are much more significant and your hourly would be much more significant, and it makes sense to be fresh. The other question to ask yourself is, how good at deep stack poker are you really? When you identify kind of what your main skill level is based on your stack size, you should probably register at the blind level that is your sweet spot, or where you'll have a couple levels of play at your sweet spot. In terms of memorable hands for me in the prelim events, didn't really have any. I played a go big or go home approach in most of the events, and in all cases, I went home in the prelims. But I can tell you where I had the most fun, and that was in the PL08 events for 3 reasons. First one is that the late starting time meant that we were playing in the Amazon room or the Brasilia room, which are much more enjoyable places to be than the Pavilion, which is just a shit show, or the Poker Kitchen, because that's where they put tables at this year. But whatever. Number 2 is different crowds of people. I talked to this issue in a previous video, and it was, I found that I was playing with more enjoyable people in the 4-card event than I was in the 2. It might have been a complete fluke, as I've been told. There are some nasty people in the mixed games as well. But I got the pleasure of sitting with Jim Colopy twice. In each event, Jim Colopy got moved to my table at some point. His name's Mr. Big Case Online. This guy's just so much fun to be around. He's so awesome. I'm always so happy when I see Jim. So, we just hung out and things were good, and the rest of the table was really good people to be around too. So that made me think, maybe this is the crowd that I want to play with, but maybe it was table draws. I don't know. But number 3, the big one, is that it's more exciting when you have more cards and more ways to win. Split pot allows you to win with the high or the low. But also, you have more chances to make mistakes and therefore more opportunities to learn. I feel like I've played so much no limit and I get into my rhythms where, I think I got it, and I don't really take advantage of a lot of the learning opportunities because, it seems so routine. But when I'm doing something that's completely different, I'm guaranteed to want to reflect on the experience and try to learn from the experience because I know for sure I'm making mistakes. Now, that's not to say I don't make mistakes in no limit, and it's to say that I probably should take the approach I take to other games to my no limit. It just wasn't what was automatic for me, and that was one of the additional benefits of playing the other games. It also gave me this perspective, which I can now take to my no limit studies. So, there's the other benefits that just kind of opens your mind in different ways to different perspectives, which you can then bring back to your no limit, your main game. So, will I play the prelims next year? Depends on where I'm at and where my goals are. Winning a bracelet could be cool, but I don't think that's something that I need to do to feel good about myself. As long as I feel like I'm playing my best game when I play, and then I do the right things to ensure that I can play my best poker. Whether it's a Poker Stars or a Great Blue Heron Trophy or a World Series of Poker bracelet, it's not really that big of a difference, honestly. Would I rather learn PLO and PLO8 more in depth than no limit? Of course. Smaller fields is one of the benefits, so more likely to win. It'll make my brain bigger by developing different areas, so that's obviously good. And better odds. Better odds. I think people also probably don't play the other games as well as they play no limit, and the end game will have more soft spots in the other events than they would in no limit. That being said, in almost all the World Series events, things do get tough once you get down to the end, but a truly elite player can rise above that, no problem. So do I recommend playing prelims? Yes, if you think you have the skill set, which I talked about. You really got to be prepared for those long days. That's the toughest part. It's not having a super strong A game. It's being able to stay on your A game as long as possible, or having a really good B or C game that is stronger than your opponent's. And if it's just, to experience the WSOP, no, I don't think you're getting your money's worth by playing a prelim. I think you would be much better off if you played, a main event at a different casino, or, you played a daily deep stack, walked around the World Series, experienced the World Series that way, and made better use of your money. The only tournament that to me really exemplifies the World Series of Poker is the main event. So if you can find your way into that one through satellites, that's what you want to try to experience. But otherwise, I think there are better things you can do with your money, and more enjoyable ways to experience Vegas, and just better playing environments where the players just get taken better care of and treated better, and you'll feel better at the end of the day. Playing in a casino that actually has a little bit of sunlight coming in than in a convention center where it's pitch black everywhere. Just saying. So find the events that match your skill set and your sweet spot, and invest your dollars there. The only differences between winning one of those ones and winning a World Series of Poker event is the type of trophy you get and the size of the purse. But in the smaller field ones, the ones that are not at the Rio, you'll win way more often. You will get to go deep and apply your main edge, which is your short-handed and your stack size play, like ICM and things like that. And you won't feel depleted from having to play 5 days only to come up short. The World Series of Poker prelims are a serious grind, serious marathon. I know I say it all the time, but this is where clear goals and self-assessment are so important. Playing poker should be fun. And when you're chasing after a realistic and worthwhile goal, poker usually is fun. So this information is probably similar when looking at other festivals. Just know that you are looking to maximize your experience. Whether that means your profit or your entertainment is up to you. Just do not go in with the FOMO attitude. That's the fear of missing out. Or you'll feel the need to play way more than you healthily should. And you'll be throwing money in the pot when you're on your B game at best, and just getting depleted before the most important stuff. So pick the ones that matter and focus on those events, and don't get caught up in everyone else's agenda for thinking you have to play the other events. Do what you want to do. You just do you. So be realistic with yourself. Jog at a comfortable pace, and you'll get the results you want much sooner than you would if you're trying to sprint for 7 days straight, only to have a marathon that is the main event left to run right around the corner. Most people they come out way too hard right out the gate and just think they just need to keep running and fighting through it, and they don't have any energy left in the tank, and they just get run over all summer because of it. So yeah, that about wraps it up. I hope this video helps you in planning your future poker trips and your future World Series of Poker. If you'd like to book a session with me before next year's festival, or any poker festival for that matter, to help with planning out your ideal schedule, both which events you should play, a little bit about what to do on the table and what to do on your off days to ensure that your energy levels are highest and that you can get through those days, I'd be more than happy to help and more than happy to work with you. I'm available for one-on-one coaching at grips.com/coaching, or just go to Grips, click the coaching button. You'll see me. It's a big picture of my face. It's easy enough to find me. And I get just as excited about helping you make plans and actionable steps as I do about talking the actual strategy. So, whatever format of coaching you're looking for, I love them all. As long as I'm helping someone to get gains and position themselves to get what they want out of life, I'm feeling good and I'm happy about it. So, in the final episode of this series, the next one coming up, I will be talking about specific hands that I played in the World Series of Poker main events, and the methods I put in place to get my 4th straight cash in the greatest tournament in the world. I look forward to sharing it with you, but until then, I'm going to say this is Evan for Grips.com saying peace out and happy stacking.